I did already. I started it. Oh, yeah, yes, the tape. That would be good.
You, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I always pull this chair back. The whole man.
Oops.
All right, Lorene, I'm ready when you are. Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. It is June 12th. Welcome to the North Kingstown School Committee meeting. This is a work session. If everyone would rise, and we're going to say the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As I said, welcome. There is the sign-up sheet up front for all those who wish to have citizens' comments. We have citizens' comments at the beginning of the agenda, and I'll go over what that's about. But since it is a work session, before we take a vote on anything, we will also anyone who wants to come up before we take a vote on anything, you may do that also. So that's just as a reminder. I won't formally be asking for people to come up if you have something to say before we vote on it. But if I see you at the microphone, just make sure that you're there, that you want to speak. And if I don't see you, it's not because I'm ignoring you, and just kind of give me a wave, and I will make sure that I acknowledge you before we do the vote. Lorraine, could you call the roll, please?
Kimberly Page.
Here.
Richard Welsh. Linda Avanzado. Melvoyd Benson.
Here.
John Biscardin.
Here.
Larry Cerisi.
Here.
William Mudge.
Here.
Julia Held. Thank you.
Thank you. Lorraine, could you also do calendars?
June 14th, Budget Subcommittee meeting, 3 p.m. Central Administration Building. June 18th, Facilities Subcommittee meeting, 4:30 p.m. Central Administration Building. This is in addition to your calendar. June 19th, last day of school. June 25th, School Committee Executive Session and Special Work Session, North Kingstown High School, 7 p.m. June 26th, School Committee Business Meeting, North Kingstown High School Auditorium. July 4th, Independence Day, all offices closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
did the Secretary neglect to announce that there would be a Budget Subcommittee meeting?
I did announce the Budget Subcommittee
Good.
meeting.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Was the second thing.
Okay,
Thursday.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now at presentations recognitions. Dr. Ajay, did you want to?
Yeah, I want to announce two things. Good evening, everyone. I just want to say, before the meeting tonight, we had a special gathering in the cafeteria for our recent retirees, and I would like to recognize them again right now. I'm not going to, do the whole handshake and gift thing again, but I just do want to mention who they are and their years of service in the district, because it really is quite phenomenal. Pat Dodd is a minibus driver. She has 29 years of service and is retiring this year. Joe Fagan, a custodian with 13 years of service to the district. Celia Camacho, a custodian with 10 years of service to the district. Lorraine Pierce, a food service worker at Wickford Middle School with 14 years. Candy Lodge, a secretary in the curriculum office, 30 years of service to our district. She's the winner on this list tonight. Karen Evans, a paraprofessional with 17 years of service. Ron Montanaro, a 6th grade teacher at Wickford Middle School with 22 years. Marie Noble, also 6th grade at Wickford Middle School with also 22 years. Peg McEwen, 4th grade at Hamilton with 24 years. Joy LaPrade, speech pathologist in the district with 28 years. Lynn Bruno, 2nd grade at Forest Park, 22 years. Jean Donahue, 1st grade at Hamilton. Something just happened with the focus, that's good. With 26 years. Dennis Sullivan, history teacher at North Kingstown High School, 28 years. Janice Stelgis, 3rd grade at Hamilton, 17 years. Patricia Jutras, 1st grade at Quidnesset with 10 years, and Stu Armstrong, the assistant principal at Wickford Middle School, is leaving us after 4 years of service. In all, this group has given us 316 years of service to our district, and I cannot thank them enough for their service to our district. So if you would join me in a round of applause for them. One other announcement I have before moving on is, today I learned formally that Rachel Santa has taken a position in the Newport Regional Consortium, the Newport County Consortium. And, while I am thrilled for Rachel, I regret the fact that she is leaving us. She has been a tremendous leader of pupil personnel in our district and has really done a great deal for this community, not to mention a great deal for the kids of our district, and she will be sorely missed. So I hope if you get a chance to see her in the next month or so, she'll be officially leaving us at the end of July. So I just wanted to make that announcement tonight. Thank you.
All right, a couple of recognitions that I have. We had graduation on Friday, and we had 356 graduates. That is for 89% of the class. However, a number of them are just finishing up with a few things of some summer school, and by that time we expect to have 95% of the senior class graduate. When I was at the Sports Awards banquet last Thursday, maybe it was a week and a half ago, we had 113 athletes, senior athletes, who attended that. And of those group, 91% of them were going to college, 8 were going into the military, and 2 were undecided. I thought that was pretty impressive. At our spring athletes awards ceremony that we had last Sunday, 70% were on the honor roll or higher. Also, they gave out the Most Valuable Player Award for spring sports, and I'd like to congratulate Mike Berzaghi for tennis, Maria Bolblick, and Aisha McAdams, that's it, for track, Ryan Kamoli and Billy Cruz for lacrosse, Zach Brady and Brandon Hildebrandt for unified basketball, Ben Stewart for track, Rachel Bryan and Fiona Christie for sailing, Owen Heath and Adam Southworth for golf, Taylor Butler and Natalie Worth for softball, Bretton Bowerly and Michael Scott for volleyball, Katie Callahan for lacrosse, and Dominic Grillo for baseball. And the other following students were given the Principal's Sportsmanship Award for good sportsmanship and fair play, and that was Austin Baker and Scott Lanane for baseball, Jamie Wadovic for lacrosse, Paul Spatrini and Dave Lewander for volleyball, Sarah Deal and Kelly Medeiros for softball, Justin Pratt for golf, Matt Gibbs for sailing, Malcolm Peoples for track, Dan Beisel and Darren Enriquez for unified basketball, Connor McMillan for lacrosse, Bridget Manning and Kelsey Naiman for track, and Kyle Sayers for tennis. Also, congratulations to the boys track team for winning states, and to Aisha McAdams, who was our state winner for the 3,000 meters, and for Ben Stewart, who was the state champion for the hurdles. We're all done with presentations and recognitions. That brings us to citizens' comments. We have the sign-up here up front. Citizens' comments are a time for the citizens to come up and comment on things that you would like to comment on. They don't have to be on our agenda. And I received a phone call today about somebody asking about the ESP contract, which is not on the agenda tonight. However, people can still come up and comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. It is your time to speak to us, so we will not be responding. If at the very end of everybody speaking, if Dr. Auger needs to clear anything up, he will, but other than that. So, first person on the list is Nancy Ferenko. And then I'll tell you, and then it's Sandy Blankenship. So I'll tell you when it's one ahead.
Hi, I'm Nancy Ferenko, President-elect of the North Kingstown Educational Support Professionals resident taxpayer. I live at 365 Potter Road. To date, we do not know the arbitrator's settlement for our bargaining unit. Therefore, I am here tonight to plead with the school committee to take any notions off the table for outsourcing our custodians in the near future, the cafeteria workers. Our school district is outstanding because we have a total package of exemplary teachers and educational support personnel. Many people moving into Rhode Island pick our town because of the high quality of education we offer, and that includes managing our buildings and the safety of our students. Our members support our students by volunteering at fundraisers and at students' athletics. They are committed to help the faculty, staff, and students. Our cafeteria workers know their students, and they make sure that no one goes hungry. Our custodians know where everything is in their buildings and can anticipate what needs to be done sometimes before a request is made, because they have many years of experience servicing these buildings. Outsourcing will result in no access to kitchens for fundraising and no setup for activities because there will be no volunteers from the ESP to provide it. The North Kingstown Educational Support Professionals represent 210 school support employees in our school district. Of the 210 employees, 30 custodians may be facing the outsourcing of their jobs to a privatized company, as well as 22 food service workers who will deal with the same fate in the near future. How will privatization affect our school community? The private company decides the employment standards, i.e. health benefits, criminal records, etc., and will interview, hire, and screen potential employees, not the school department administration or the school committee. Low wages and inferior benefits equate to constant employee turnover, not the loyal commitment of service we are used to with our current custodian and food service staff. Unfamiliar people will be in our buildings before, during, and after the school year. The security of our facilities may be an issue. Our buildings will be cleaned, and our student lunch program will be prepared by people who do not have a personal commitment to our students, staff, and school facilities. GCA is the company the school committee has contacted for a custodian contract. GCA say they will interview our present custodians, but they do not guarantee hiring them. In addition, the school committee is looking at Aramark and Tedesco as replacements for our food service workers. These are all for-profit, private companies that offer low wages and inferior benefits, as well as questionable business tactics. I sent a Tedesco video that was aired on CBS National News a few weeks ago to our superintendent and the school committee. I asked the superintendent if the video could be viewed at this meeting, but I was denied by Mrs. Page and Dr. Auger. Here's the gist of the video. This Tedesco video was an interview by a former Tedesco administrator who stated that the food provided was inferior because of the fillers that were in the food provided to the schools. There are presently 17 states that have taken legal action against Tedesco because Tedesco is not living up to its contract of reimbursing the school departments with monies that they were agreed upon when hiring. Also, the former administrator suggests you stay with local staff and local farmers for the best products for your students. For the past few years, our cafeterias have been utilizing our local farms' fruits and vegetables because they are fresh and cheaper. We are ahead of most towns in this state when it comes to providing local fresh foods for our students' meals and maintaining a top-notch wellness program. Our loyal and hard-working custodians and food service workers certainly do not deserve to be handed over to companies who offer very low wages, inferior benefits, and minimal standards of employment. Our current custodians and food service workers represent 25% of the 210 North Kingstown Educational Support employees. 62% have given more than 10 years of loyal service. 56% live in North Kingstown, pay taxes, vote, and support community businesses as consumers. In closing, the majority of the people present tonight are here to support our custodians and cafeteria workers. Please keep our present support staff working in our schools as North Kingstown School Department employees. Privatization is not the answer. It will only cause more unemployment, loss of homes, less shopping in our community, and most importantly, the disruption of our schools' operations and safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Sandy Blankenship is the next person after Sandy Blankenship is Sue Warburton. I would ask that people try to keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. Sandy Blankenship, 103 Dodge Street, current president of the NKESP, but as you can see, I leave them in good hands with Nancy Franco. My comments are short tonight. I'd like to begin by saying that our custodians and food service workers, actually, Dr. Auger, you mentioned this tonight as well, have hundreds of years of combined service to the NK school community. They are part of the workforce that has made North Kingstown the great school system that it is today. Did you know Jamestown privatized their lunch program and is in the hole? They have already switched companies, and still the students do not like the food. So sales are down, and the company is charging more than their in-house food service when they were with NK, and they are looking to change yet again. North Smithfield privatized their custodians and found that the service was inadequate and that the private company was too expensive. So they went back to their own in-house custodian staff. East Greenwich privatized their food service, and they are over $100,000 in the hole because of it. They too have changed companies, and they are still doing poorly. With private companies and substandard pay, there is naturally a high turnover, which causes poor morale, loss of institutional knowledge, and a lower overall quality of service. The North Kingstown custodians and food service are part of the community. They know the students, the parents, and the teachers. They go the extra mile for the people they work with and listen to the students when a student needs a friendly ear to listen. You will definitely not get this with private company employees. Lastly, it has been proven in many districts that privatizing does not save money. There are parents who have moved to NK because of the school system, the same school system that has been built over the years by many loyal employees who have decades of service to our schools. Let's keep it that way by maintaining our in-house custodial and food service employees. I realize we haven't heard the arbitrator's decision yet, but this is really our plea and our hope, to be quite honest with you, that that arbitration decision will bring us close together and keep privatization out of our house. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Warburton, and then Terry Mirandu.
Hi, my name is Sue Warburton. I'm a second grade teacher at Fishing Cove School. I've come to speak on behalf of the support staff tonight. When I student taught in the fall of 1992, one of the first things that my supervising teacher was to introduce me to the custodian. At that time, she told me no matter what school you go to, make friends with the custodian. They can help you with anything. I don't remember that custodian's name, but what I do remember is his smile, his kindness, and the pride he took in not only caring for his school, but more importantly, being a part of the school community. Over the past 20 years, I've worked in several districts at many different schools, and this has always proven true. School custodians are much more than the men and women that keep our schools clean. They're mentors to our students. They're positive role models for our students. They greet the students and the staff with a smile each morning. They help with night presentations. They help you when you're frantically looking for an electrical cord at open house. They help you when you get locked out of school at night and have forgotten something very important. And they do so much more. I could tell you many, many more stories. North Kingstown school custodians are more than just a cleaning service. They're a valuable part of our school community. I implore you to work together to find a compromise and retain these valuable employees for our schools and, more importantly, for our students. please don't outsource NK employees, but rather value them as the students and staff do, as the irreplaceable members of the community that they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry Mirandu and then Kathy Miller.
Good evening. My name is Terry Mirandu. I teach third grade at Fishing Cove. I don't know much about this process of outsourcing, but I do know that every morning I walk through the cafeteria to get my students off the playground. And when I do, I see Mrs. Zahora interacting with students having breakfast. She has a smile on her face as she starts these children's day off with a positive presence. She is a true role model for our students.
Kathy Miller and then Francesca Morel.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Kathy Miller. I am not a resident of North Kingstown, but I am a retired teacher from North Kingstown who's fortunate enough to be on a subbing job at Fishing Cove School. And I, too, would like to speak on behalf of our custodians. I did not have the same cooperating teacher that Sue Warburton did, but my cooperating teacher, many years probably before, a few years before she was born even, gave me the same advice. She said, get to know your custodian because they will be an integral part of your success. And my 26 years teaching in North Kingstown proved that to be true. I have worked with many of the custodial staff, Brian, Bob, Leo, Tom, Margaret, and Tony, just to name a few. I can attest to their hard work, providing a safe, clean environment conducive to learning. And thanks to them, our North Kingstown schools shine in more ways than one. They go above and beyond the call of duty in their job descriptions. They set up and break down for all the special occasions that many of us have. They tend to repairs and supply requests in a timely fashion, and they make sure that teachers and administrators have all that we need to do our jobs the best we can. And I have never once heard, that's not my job. Fiscal responsibility is indeed important, but so is loyalty to your loyal employees, whose jobs are not only important to them on a personal level, but also to the fiscal health and economic support of our community. Sometimes we don't appreciate what we have until it's gone. Our custodians are an integral part of our whole school community. They have served us well, and I think we should not let them down, and we should return the support that they have shown to us for many years and ensure the continued success of every aspect of the North Kingstown schools, keeping them the great schools that they are. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Francesca Morel and then Joy Hannon.
Good evening. My name is Francesca Morel. I live on Lang Drive in North Kingstown. I've been employed in the school system as a paraprofessional since 1997. I formed a lot of friendships among all areas of ESP staff throughout the years. Not only do many of us live in town, but we remain school district employees until retirement. I'd like to share a quick story which demonstrates not only friendship among colleagues, but also a personal touch that I don't believe would exist if an outsourcing company were to take the place of our custodians. I work in the D building at the high school in the ALP program. It was midweek, and I couldn't understand why our room hadn't been vacuumed. A student had brought in some grass and mud under his shoes, and it was still under the desk the next day. I emailed Jackie, our head custodian, and asked her why our room wasn't cleaned other than trash cans emptied, and she apologetically said that custodial staff was short-handed and vacuuming could only be done over the weekend. However, the following day I came in to an unexpected surprise, and I found my classroom vacuumed, and it was only a Thursday. I wouldn't expect an outsourcing company to go beyond their duties to provide a personal favor. I believe because the majority of us live in the town that we support, not only do we take extra pride in our schools, but we also share a mutual respect among each other. Please keep the custodians, our friends, our neighbors, and our taxpayers employed in the North Kingstown School Department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joy Hannon, and then Deanna. Oh, Diane Jelliker, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Joyce Hannon, and I live on Oak Tree Drive. I have lived in and have paid taxes to the town of North Kingstown for the past 39 years. I have had 2 sons graduate from North Kingstown High School and gone to have successful and fulfilling lives. I've been employed by the North Kingstown School Department since 1999 as a paraprofessional. I would like to speak to the relationship that I have personally witnessed between our custodial staff and our student athletes. My youngest son, Christopher, attended school here from 2000 through 2003. He was on the wrestling team. I would bring him to his practices, and I would attend all his matches and tournaments. This is when I first saw the wonderful relationship that the wrestling team had with the custodial staff. It always amazed me how the wrestling team and the custodians worked so well together in preparing the gym for the night's entertainment. I also took note that there were no bigger supporters of the wrestling team than Joe and Jackie Fagan, both second-shift custodians here at the high school. I found it very touching that on senior night, a night that is supposed to be devoted to honoring the graduating seniors, Joe and Jackie Fagan would be honored by the team with a special thank you to Joe and a beautiful bouquet of flowers for Jackie. This touching gesture should tell you how the wrestling team felt about both of them. They clearly have gone above and beyond their expected duties because they genuinely cared about the students. 10 years later, I still come to the high school to see wrestling matches, and the level of commitment to our students by our custodial staff has remained unchanged. Even in his retirement thoughts addressed to us this morning, Joe Fagan has only best wishes for North Kingstown High School. To quote from Joe's retirement thank you note, "North Kingstown High will always be in my thoughts, especially the sports teams that I hope will exist forever. God bless you all, your friend Joe." I don't believe this personal bond could be formed with an outsourced company whose employees are transient. I implore you to keep our students safe and cared about by not outsourcing our custodial staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Jelliker, and then Mary Churchill De Silva.
Hi, my name is Diane Jelliker. I work in North Kingstown. I live in North Kingstown. I'm a taxpayer, and I'm also Vice President-elect of NKESP. I won't take a lot of your time. I know this is not going to be an easy decision. How can it be? It's going to affect many lives, the lives of their families. And I know emotions should not play a part in decisions that are made. But as I listen to you, Dr. Ojay, speak tonight to retirees regarding the number of years of service and how it feels as if this is a family, please think about that when you make that decision to outsource. This is a family. I work in schools throughout the district, and just this week, I called a student into my office who was having an awful morning. And I was so shocked when I said to her, "I understand you're having a bad time." She said, "I was having a bad time." The custodian talked to me this morning. He could see I was visibly upset. And he said to me, "Please, this is a little thing. Please don't let it ruin your day. Let's take this little thing, keep it little, and just move on." She said, "He made me feel great. This is the staff that we have. This is the type of people that you were thinking of outsourcing. This is our family that we would like to keep together." Thank you.
Mary Churchill De Silva.
Mary Churchill De Silva, 104 Butternut Drive. I'm the proud parent of a North Kingstown 2012 graduate.
and I'm also a paraprofessional at Stony Lane School. I simply made a list of concerns for outsourcing the custodians and the food service workers. Company workers will have less of a connection with the school and the students. The quality of the work and the worker will be unknown. No ownership or pride in the schools. A transient workforce because the wages cannot support a household for long. The only party that benefits is the company that gets the contract. The math may show savings, but there are intangible costs that require rethinking. Strangers roaming the halls. Rehired workers will have a lower hourly wage and diminished benefits. Current custodians are guaranteed an interview, not necessarily a job. North Kingstown will be adding more jobs that consign working people to lower incomes and perhaps poverty. Some may lose their homes and ability to pay their bills. Once the decision is made to outsource and a time shows that it was an unwise decision, how can you undo it? This will have a direct impact on funding down the line, home ownership, taxes, and so forth. And also, the school and community morale will be greatly affected. I just have one more quote from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. No business which depends for their existence on paying less than a living wage to its workers has any right to continue in this country.
That's all the people who have signed up for this evening. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak?
Hi, Jill Johnnon, 102 Sidot Drive. I just saw on the agenda that the Hamilton PTO is donating money to buy smart boards. And I think it's great that they've raised the money and have parents' support to do that. My concern would be that we're not creating any inequalities amongst the schools, and that we kind of look at the number of smart boards per classroom district-wide, and we don't start having schools that can raise more money to use for things that would normally be covered by the school department, to kind of throw the balance off, so that you have schools that may be associated with higher socioeconomic groups having more money, and other schools not having the same resources available. So I just ask you to look into that, making sure that we're not going down a path that could cause problems down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Jim McGuinn, 412 Chimney Rock. Over the years, I've identified on many occasions, for the record, that we have great kids in this district. Obviously, where they go and what they accomplish, what schools they go to, what businesses they start, and what they accomplish after graduating. We've got involved parents, and I have always, sometimes to their, they'd rather not, but recognized the great teachers that we have, and several by name. We also have great support staff. I specifically remember a couple of them, and one of them was when my daughter was at Quinnesset Elementary. Joe, who was the custodian, was always there every time there was an event. He was videotaping. He retired a couple years ago. Now, my daughter's teaching grad school, and most of her friends are out of school. They still see Joe around town, and he remembers those kids. You know, it's important that we remember Many of these people are student contact. We're looking to outsource people who have contact on a daily basis with students. I really believe that they're part of the teaching and learning, many times by example. I remember custodians and cafeteria workers from when I was in school, and any adult, I think, in this audience will remember there were people that maybe impacted their lives. The savings, and Superintendent Thornton said this a year ago, it's in healthcare. Quite frankly, it's in providing either no or limited health care. I have a question. Did the cafeteria workers offer to go back to a 50% copay for part-time people? That was in the prior contract. It is not in the current contract. Did they offer to not have paid days off to try to cut the budget? I had suggested that the director, who's probably going to stay even if it's outsourced, not be part of that budget. I've been on this issue. It's not new. 2007, I brought up the issue that the vending machine money, if it was outsourced, would have to go to whatever company it was. It was not going to the cafeteria. Quinnesset, if you look at just the issues we've got going with Quinnesset, the support staff, and particularly the custodians, have been trying to deal with the roof leaks and the mold for years. They've been ignored. It simply took a call to the manufacturer of the roofing system, it's still under warranty, who said he had, as of the end of March, had never been contacted about any roof leaks. There were 47 reported roof leaks in that building in the past 2.5 years. The money's there. We've been adding costly administrators and giving raises and bonuses. We've ignored real consolidation and outsourcing with non-student-facing staff, the IT department, finance, and others. Yes, there was a proposal to consolidate the finance department and have it fall under the school department. That's against the charter. That is completely disingenuous, quite frankly. But this is the first year, 2012 and 35, that Jamestown is not paying their bonding costs for either this building or the high school before. That's $262,000. That certainly would help. Okay? This year, as of yesterday, with 11 business days left in the school, the year-to-date budget had $1.8 million not spent and not encumbered. And they're looking to spend money for next year's budget to use it or lose it. I'm also asking that the Quinnesset issues be addressed. Those are our students, 6 through 11, and those are our employees. I've asked that the architect who, the bond for the Davisville middle school roof was supposed to be $3 million. He hired an architect. It's $1.4 million to fix that roof and to do other things. Asking that they have that architect who's willing to do the work help to remedy the issues at Quinnesset, the carpets, the windows that can't be opened. There's too much.
Could you wrap it up? That
Yeah,
was the
I'm wrapping it
5-minute bell.
There's high levels of carbon dioxide in the building. The hardware is broken, and the windows are screwed shut. Get the RIDE approval for either using the balance of the $6.4 million or the general fund, and get the contractors going to work on Davisville Middle School to come and look at the windows at Quinnesset and open them up, not only for our students, but for our staff. Thank you.
Joy Arnold, 1016 Old Baptist Road, and media specialist here at the high school. I'm here to address the cuts to the high school media center as well as the plan for reassignment of media specialist positions. Firstly, just to reiterate a few things, the cut of the .5 media specialist will eliminate common instruction and assessment of information literacy to every NKHS student. It will mean fewer classes can be taught in collaboration with teachers to enhance classroom curriculum. It will mean fewer open hours, and it will mean a reduction of services in general to teachers and students. Even more impact will be felt by these, the moves being necessitated by 2 media specialist jobs being put in the job fair. From what I understand, administration is having difficulty scheduling with the reduction in staff and is forcing the movement of staff from the high school to elementary schools, the elementary to the middle school, and the middle school to the high school. The inclusion of the 2 positions in the job reassignment fair is a violation of state contract law, from what I understand, because it forces a partial layoff to the second most senior employee affected instead of the least senior. I have stood here before and spoken, as well as emailing you and trying to explain the difficulties the high school will face with the reduction in staff, both educationally and logistically. It has become clear that the reduction in staff has even further-reaching consequences that will leave the high school media center closed because of the lack of a certified media specialist at times, or reassigning employees, creating an employment situation that will violate this state law and invite a grievance situation by the NEA-NK Association. While this in itself causes a problem, an additional impact will be felt by the high school, because not only will there be 1/2 less librarian, but this librarian will be new to a high school who is already facing these cuts and is new to a collection and curriculum and assignments. It's already going to be difficult to cover the media center with the reduction of a half-time librarian and a .5 clerical position. This is made even more difficult because the remaining librarian is not familiar with the high school. So cuts that are already going to be difficult are even more difficult. Classroom teachers, English, social studies, science, may be said to be able to pick up some of the slack of the teaching that goes on, but the library media specialist is a certified position just as their positions are. If it was simply the level of a teacher's education that dictated what they could teach, then we would not need the certifications that we have, and nor would we be ensuring that every student is being taught by qualified individuals. Never mind the fact that the teachers have a hard enough time fitting in the amount of content in the school year with all of the additional requirements, such as senior project and e-portfolio and all those other things. At the very least, I'm hoping that the reassigning of positions will not be considered as a remedy to the difficulties this cut has made, and of course, I'm hoping that the teaching position will be restored to the media center. Thank you.
All right. At this time, we're going to go to the superintendent's report.
I want to thank everybody for coming on out and making your comments tonight. I really do appreciate that. I know that I don't necessarily agree with all of them, and I can explain. I'm not going to do so necessarily tonight. We have a meeting set up on Monday night. We made a special meeting, and we, as was explained earlier tonight, we are awaiting an arbitrator's decision. And right now, we don't have it, and I'm not sure when we will get it. We're hoping to have it sometime this week, and if we have it in time before, I said next week, I meant 2 weeks from tonight, the 25th, Monday night the 25th will be a meeting devoted to this particular issue, and I will certainly have plenty to say on that evening, and I'm sure many will come as well with other things to say as well. One thing that I do want to point out is that, these discussions that we've had, negotiations, mediation, arbitration, have been lengthy. And there have been a lot of proposals put across the table both ways. And a number of them have not necessarily included outsourcing. And still, there was a difficulty reaching agreement. And it takes two sides to reach an agreement. I just want you to know there are options out there. There are a lot of options that have been explored. I can't think of just about any possibility that we haven't thrown on the table and started trying to work with. But it's been obviously very hard to come to a consensus about this. So, obviously it's a very difficult issue. The district is at a point where we had budgeted with certain concessions in mind for this past year. And our budget has been hurt significantly because we didn't realize those concessions, and that just contributes to a problem that we're hoping to have answers to. There are no easy answers. Our economy is awful, and things are very difficult all around. So, but obviously, we're going to have a heck of a lot more to say about this next time. A couple of other quick things. Just, Mrs. Johnson, you came up to talk about the smart board issue. I agree with you. It is my hope to use some capital money at some point. Once we get a hold on this budget hopefully in the next few weeks. We've learned that the state legislature has passed the state aid piece of that, so that's a good chunk of the remaining money that we need to get to a balanced budget. And, obviously, the results of the negotiations with ESP will be another significant piece of this. And once all of this is sorted out and we realize exactly what we have for capital improvements, it is one of my goals that, if not this coming year, that very soon thereafter, that we would do something to make sure that all of our elementaries and middle schools and the high school have an equitable distribution of technology, including smart boards. We have had some grants at different elementary schools, but even with those, teachers at different schools have participated. It hasn't always worked out equitably that each school gets the same amount of smart boards, so there are some more at some schools more than others. So that is something that I'd like to correct. And while I appreciate PTOs helping out, it is a district responsibility to make sure that that distribution is equitable. Mr. McGuinn, your concern for Quidnesset is something that is a good concern, and I appreciate that, and I just want you to know that I have the same concern. It is a proposal that I'm making tonight to do something to address the Quidnesset rug, and it's an old rug, and it needs replacing, whether it has to do with water damage or not, and I'd like to do that. We're going to make a proposal tonight to use money in the current bond, the one that has just been approved this spring. One of the proposals tonight, one of the points on the agenda is an approval for the Davisville roof, which, because of the tough economy, bids came in very low, and it looks like we set aside roughly $3 million to fix that roof, and bids are coming in at about $1.3 million or so. So there's some money there within that bond to do that kind of a project. But, all of this speaks to the availability of funding to get these much-needed projects done, and for contracts. So there's a lot at stake with all of these decisions. State aid plays into it, bonds play into it, all of these kinds of things. They're all kind of related to one another. In terms of Mrs. Arnold with her concerns for the library, I've addressed this a number of times in private with her and publicly, and I just want her to know that I do understand her concerns, and there are a lot of other concerns on our budget list, and if it's something that we can ultimately get to, I'd like to, but we have the tough job of prioritizing things, and I'm not so sure that it would be something that I would recommend, given what I understand about the funding issues that we have. So that's all I have for now, and we have a pretty lengthy agenda, so I'm going to leave it to you, Mrs. Page.
All right, we're going into the consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to exempt? Mr. Cerisi.
A2 and B6.
Okay, A2 and B6. Mr. Mudge.
A1. That's A1 and 2. B5, 7, 9. These are mostly quick questions. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay?
You have quick questions on those.
Yes, I do. C2. Did you like that? C3. And 9. That's it.
Mrs. Benson, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. B6, the second person to weigh in on that. B6. And that's it.
All right.
It's already on there.
Can we make a change to, what is it? I think it's C5 under the coaches' budgets. It shouldn't be Paul Manning. It should be Paul Fanning with an F. Mr. Busgarden.
B8 and C5.
Mr. Cerisi.
Madam Chair, at this time, I'll motion to approve any non-exempted agenda items at this time, if there are any left.
There are a few.
I'll
Okay,
second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the items not exempted pass. The first item is B1, minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
A1.
I'm sorry,
A1.
A1. Or do you need to make a change to the minutes? Or is that what your motion is about, Mr. Mudge?
I'd like to make my motion with regards to back at page 21. It says that that would be item B. Actually, it's item B. The 12-13 budget. And in here it says we approved by 4-3 vote, recommended budget of reductions for fiscal year 13 as submitted on 5/22. I would like to know what was that amount of money that was approved? It's unclear to me what that was, the reductions.
Well, is the superintendent's,
Items were attached.
yeah, the items were attached.
I understand,
So-
but what was the sum total of all the reductions that we approved?
All I can say, I don't have it in front of me. Items were attached.
Mr. Cerisi.
Motion to approve this agenda item.
Could anybody identify that?
Madam Chair, we're approving the minutes. We're not going to have a budget discussion. We can certainly have a budget discussion when we get to the budget on the agenda, but right now we're approving the minutes. So I'd make a motion to approve that agenda item.
But we don't know what we approved, that's all I'm saying. What were the amount of reductions we approved?
I think that the amount was amended, was attached to the minutes, so as long as you read that, then you'd be fine.
Well,
Do I have a
should the
second
people
for the
out
motion
here
on the floor?
know? And see, the other most important question, too, with regard to this, what were the budget reductions made in reference to? Was it in reference to the initial budget presented by the superintendent, the $60 million budget?
I have a motion and a second on the floor.
Or was it in reference to it was a reference to the budget that was sent to the town council?
We have a motion and a second on the floor, and at this point, you don't have a question on anything in regards to the motion, so I'm going to be moving.
I'm asking the question, what was the amount of reductions?
Okay, let's take a roll call vote. Mrs. Berglund.
Melvoin Benson.
And what is the
To
motion?
approve the minutes.
To approve the minutes.
To approve the minutes, yes.
John Busgarden.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
No.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you.
Okay, the next exempted item is A2, the executive session minutes of May 22nd, 2012. Do I have a motion to approve the executive session minutes? Mr. Cerisi.
Madam Chair, I think there's just a typo in those minutes. I just want to correct that typo for the record. It's in the attendance section of the meeting. You have, the clerk has Mr. Mudge's name listed twice, once on the present and once on the absent, and doesn't have my name listed at all. I believe I was absent for that meeting.
Oh, sorry about that.
So if we could just clarify that typo, and I will motion to approve that agenda item.
So there's a motion to put Mr. Cerisi under absent rather than Mr. Mudge, and to approve the minutes of May 22nd, 2012. Is there a second?
That's good.
Second. Comments, please?
Yes, Mr. Mudge.
I don't think the minutes of the meeting are accurate. They don't reflect properly what was discussed at the meeting minutes. During the meeting,
Do you have a motion, or are you just
I'm
telling
making a
us?
motion to,
There is a motion on the floor.
okay, I'd like to make, well, this is executive committee meeting minutes. So there are some things that happened that aren't properly recorded. So how can I say that if it's an executive committee meeting?
Vote against the
Yeah. So you can vote against approving the minutes.
Well, then maybe I'll say what the issue was. The issue that was
I'm going to
discussed was...
ask you not to talk about the issue that
The
was
issue that was
discussed.
brought up, excuse me, because it shouldn't have been on the agenda anyway, was providing the superintendent additional funds for the money
This was
that he
ask
spent.
you-
You can't, this
The
is
monies-
not, he's
excuse
out of
me.
order, please.
Excuse me.
You're out
I
of
got
We can't be
order, Mr.
discussing executive session minutes that have been sealed in open session.
I haven't been sealed.
They certainly were when
Fact
the night,
is,
at the end of the
This committee
meeting.
wanted to pay the superintendent for the money he
Mr.
spent
Mudge,
for the
I'm going to
bond
rule you out of order.
and
I'm
the...
going to rule you out of order. I'm going to ask, Mr. Mudge, I'm ruling you out of order. We're going to have a roll call vote on the agenda, please.
Mrs. Benson.
Executive session minutes.
Executive session meeting. I think I was absent when for part.
You were.
You are, so you can
I
abstain.
won't vote on that.
Okay?
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Abstain.
William Mudge.
No.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Motion passes 2-1 with 2 abstentions.
Right, next item on the agenda is B5, custodial awards for general custodial items. Do I have a motion to approve the custodial awards?
So move.
Second. Comments, please?
You have a question?
Yeah. The question is that, and I think I know the answer, this applies to several of them here, I think, is that a fiscal year 13 cost contract award? Or
Yes,
fiscal
they-
year 12?
Yes, they're all fiscal 13.
Okay. And how much is the amount of, that we are asking? I don't see that on the agenda.
It's $15,852.91.
We show that in the future, please? Thank you. I know you have the other ones up there, and that's always been one of my complaints, okay?
Okay?
So, with that, I don't have a problem. 15,000.
All right, all those in favor of approving item B5, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Item B6.
I'd like to make a,
Thank you. Thank
Do
you.
you have a motion, Mr. Mudge?
yeah, I'd like to make a recommendation to award this to Mr. Mumford for 12 cents a gallon as opposed to 11.5 cents a gallon. Mr. Mumford, I think, had this contract this year, was awarded it because he was also in town last year, okay, and it was the same issue.
Mr. Cerisi did exempt this item, so if I could let him speak first. And Mrs. Benson, but Mr. Cerisi had it first, and then I will recognize you, Mrs. Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm basically going to reiterate the same thing I said last year when we awarded this bid. First, I just want to recognize that the school administration did follow the proper procedure and policy in putting this out for bid and making the recommendation to award the bid to a contractor. So there is, they've certainly done what they're supposed to do. And at this point, it's the committee's responsibility to either accept the recommendation or amend the recommendation. The lowest bidder was a half a cent per gallon lower than the school district's current contractor for maintaining the septic systems. The contractor who currently maintains the school district septic systems has done so for many years, is very familiar with the layout of the septic systems at all the schools and all the other so on and so forth. It's a local contractor. We've had outstanding service from this contractor in prior years. and I would like to see the district continue to do business with this contractor, and as I said, for the sum of a half a cent per gallon, I'm not willing to sacrifice doing business with an in-district contractor who has a proven excellent track record in their performance with the district, and I think bringing in another vendor who doesn't have the history and familiarity with the district could possibly result in some additional cost. So at this time, I will motion to award this contract to the vendor who currently has a contract, which I believe it's Mumford & Sons. I'll make that motion.
Second?
Mrs. Benton.
I was hoping that he wouldn't make the motion because I wanted to give an expression about it. Number one, I would like to ask, isn't this the same contractor that was listed last year? I don't know if you'll be...
This is our current contractor.
I'm talking about the Diffie and Son.
Yes.
It was the one listed last year. Well, I still have the same opinion that I did last year. And I noticed, I guess I better talk while I can, I noticed that a lot of the contracts are all out of town. And some of them are things that we could accomplish here. Electrician and other things. How do you expect, as a school committee, for us to maintain our tax base and for citizens to pay the tax when we are not considering what's in town? Now, if someone can tell me when the practice ceased...
Point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Cerisi.
Yes, Mr. Cerisi, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This discussion is off topic of the motion on the table. The motion on the table is to approve this agenda item. It's a yes or no vote. We don't need to... There's been a motion made to approve the agenda item. Not discuss the tax base in North Kingston.
Yeah, Mrs. Benson, could you make sure you keep your comments pertaining to...
The septic system?
Yes.
I can very well, because anybody that uses their imagination can see the same thing with the septic system. It's here again, and I will say, Mr. Cerisi, that I wasn't elected to come here and keep my mouth closed. And I'm going to say this, and you can shout point of order, and that is, it used to be a policy that we try to hire in-town people. And you were here when that was a policy, that we hire in-town people. I don't think you were here at that time, Ms. Gage.
That's what Mr. Cerisi wants to do.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Lorraine, could we have a roll call vote?
Just wanted to clarify.
And when I have a question for you, I will ask you. I'll give you that respect. And will not butt in when you're asking another one a question.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
Pardon? I was supposed to get a comment after.
I'm sorry, hold off, Mrs. Berglund. I missed Mr. Mudge.
I would like to say I agree with Mr. Cerisi, and that should go forward with this recommendation. And I'm almost wondering if this shouldn't be in the future, like a 3-year contract or something, so we don't have to continue to go through this. So the next time we award it, we can award contracts up to 3 years, so it might save us some time in the future. So I support the motion.
Thank you. Well, I support the motion. I don't know if I would go the way of doing a 3-year contract.
Well, no, that's just a consideration in the future.
It's just my... Yeah. Mrs. Berglund, could you do a roll call vote?
Larry Cerisi?
Yes.
William Mudge?
Yes.
Kimberly Page?
Yes.
Melvoy Benson?
Yes.
John Biscardin?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
E7, motion, or we have the intercom and PA system. Mr. Mudge, you exempted that?
Yeah, again, is that's fiscal year 13?
Yes, and it's approximately $8,800 without service calls. There are 8 intercom systems. This bid does not include the high school. The high school is on a separate contract. 8 at $1,100 per year for regular routine maintenance is $8,800.
Thank you. 8 is the same thing, it's fiscal year 13. I assume that 9 is the fiscal year 13 contract, too?
It says it on the agenda.
It doesn't say it on page 9.
Well, actually, yeah, the bid number, Mr. Mudge, 13 references the year.
That's why I said I assumed that before.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm just trying to confirm if it's okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Mudge, I'm looking at the board agenda where it says FY13, right on the item.
Well, I'm looking at the
Okay.
Mr. Cerisi.
Motion
agenda I have in front of me.
Motion to approve B7, 8, 9.
What was the amount on that, please?
$8,800.
No, that wasn't for the chair services.
Gym floor refinishing?
Hold on.
9.
The chair services, they are for 2, 3, 4, 6 chairs, and it's $1,325 apiece. So that's just the regular routine maintenance.
Good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to approve items 7, 8, and 9. Do I have a second?
I'd like to can I amend the motion to remove 8 from that.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay, so 7 and 8, or 7 and 9, a motion and a second.
Second for
All
7
those-
and 9.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? 7 and 9. Item number 8, Mr. Biscarden.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I think it was me.
Sullivan, for doing the floors, I just want to make sure that the contractor, the contractor is not a Rhode Island-based company. I want to make sure that they are licensed and registered to do business in our state.
Mr. Welch contacted me regarding that, and he said that he does not believe they are. However, I happen to know that O'Sullivan is doing a project right now for URI, and they just finished one for South Kingstown. So we are in contact with them to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do. I would assume that if they're working for URI, they're all set, but they're going to get back to me. They're speaking to their lawyer. They sent me some paperwork, which is just some insurance paperwork. But O'Sullivan did work for us 2 years ago as well.
So do you want to make your motion that pending that they are licensed in the state of Rhode Island, you'd approve number 8?
Yeah, that's the only way I would approve it. If they can be licensed and insured in the state, then I have no problem with that.
All right, so do I have, are you making that motion, Mr. Biscarden?
I'm making that motion, yes.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay.
Point of
Mrs.
order.
Benson, do you just want to speak, or do you have a point of order?
Point of order.
Well, what is your point of order?
My point of order is, if we are going to approve these, and we don't know he's licensed in Rhode Island, I think that's
That's not really a point of order. If you just want to speak to the motion, that is fine.
Mrs.
So,
Page.
well,
Mrs.
a
Page.
point of order means that we're doing something wrong
Exactly what a
procedurally,
point of
and I
order
don't
is.
think this is something wrong procedurally. So if you're wanting, so what is your question about the licenseship in Rhode Island?
None at all. You know the answer.
All right. Are there any further questions on number 8? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
What are we voting
All
on?
those opposed say no.
Amendment or the...
But Mr. Biscarden's motion, which was that as long as the vendor is licensed in the state of Rhode Island, that we will approve them doing the work on the floors.
Licensed and insured.
Licensed and insured was the motion. Okay, let's take a roll call vote.
William Mudge.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Melvoin Benson.
Yes.
John Biscarden.
Yes.
Live in the
Larry
state.
Cerisi.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mudge, you have asked about questions 10, 11, 12, well, 10 through 17. Are there any of those that you can
11 is, it's just a 13, right, Mrs. King? Okay, that's 13. 12, in fact, like Mrs. John said today, with the smart boards for Hamilton, PTO funded. Is an item like that even necessary to come before the school committee? In other words, I mean, they could give us money, or they could buy whatever, smart boards, and give it to the to the school. So that was just my question. It was answered, but I think it's something we need to follow up with. So I'm happy with that.
All right, so
13.
Motion to approve B13?
I'm on, 10,
why don't we
11,
wait
and
until
12?
see which-
Sure.
so-
10, 11, and 12 is fine with me.
10, 11, 12. Okay, so motion to approve 10, 11, 12. A second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Number 13.
Number 13, is that a 12 or 13 expenditure?
13.
Doesn't say that, though. But okay, that's a fiscal year 13 expenditure. I'm going to have a comment after I get done with these as well. Okay, so that's a fiscal year 13 expenditure. Okay? 14 was Ainsworth Baseline Assessment and Monitoring. Is that a fiscal year 13?
Yes.
14. That's fiscal year 13 also? Okay. Fine. 15, I assume is the same. That's a fiscal year 13?
Yes.
Okay. 16, fiscal year 13 as well?
Yes.
So these are all fiscal year 13. I was just double checking. Now, how about 17? What's that? Fiscal year 12 or 13?
That's fiscal year 12.
Why would we need to spend $10,000 with a week and a half left of school?
Actually, this is for invoices that are for the last several months of the year. I met with the rep from DocuTech, or actually Aztec, formerly DocuTech, and the original purchase order that was written was based on not using our copy machines for printing. And the reason for that is because when we switched from Xerox to DocuTech, we weren't using the Xerox machines for printing. So we have since determined that there is higher usage on those machines than what we had anticipated because we are printing to those machines. So hence, we are saving some money on other toners and whatnot. But this is for the last several months, and it requires approval of the school committee because it is greater than 10% of the original purchase requisition.
Thank you.
Mr. Busgarden?
Yeah. Ms. King, do we know the reason? I mean, you said because of the printing, but more specifically, what was being printed? I guess what I'm getting at is, if these are like maybe one-time things they're printing, would it make more sense economically if they were taken to maybe Print World or Staples or somebody that would print and bind them at possibly a more economical cost? I don't know. I'm just wondering what caused such a spike in the usage.
Oh, well, actually, I'm not entirely sure that it is a spike. I think it's something that possibly we should have anticipated when we did this contract with DocuTech, because the Xerox machines, we didn't have the capability. We weren't hooked up to the computers to print to them. And my experience is that as long as it's not color that you're printing, and even sometimes if it is color, it's more economically feasible to print to the copy machines. A lot of these contracts, you get your supplies and whatnot, so it is often much cheaper than going out. I would assume that if there was something that we actually needed to have bound or whatnot, we would go out, but this is probably your everyday printing and copying, things that normally, we would have done at our own desktop printers, or someone would have done at maybe a group printer in a bullpen type area.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Just another comment, please.
One last comment.
Yeah. I had asked before, Ms. King, and I think I'm going to ask again, is these are essentially recurring expenditures, right?
Yes.
Annual. Could I get a list of recurring, expenditures like this? Not contract. I don't care about the contracts itself, but I'd like to see what we have every year that's recurring, because what that tells us is we don't have an option, basically, in some of these things. In other words, the alternative is if we don't fund X or Y, we're going to lose some capability, like, for example, printing in this particular case. So there must be a gazillion of these things, okay? And I would ask, I'll send you an email again, but I'd like to just know how many recurring, projects or contracts like that we have within our budget. Okay?
All right, thank you very much. Can we
Thank
have a motion on items B, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17?
We'll move. Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item is C2, appointment of part-time athletic director. Mr. Mudge.
Yeah, I'm a little, I asked for some numbers here, but probably not sure I got them or not, but, when I look at this, and roughly, my calculations are, a teacher that in the 8th and 9th year with all his, bennies and everything else, they're approaching like $100,000 a year for cost. So if I just quickly look at that and I'm saying, this teacher's going to spend 0.4 of his time, that's like $40,000 that we're going to be paying for the athletic director's position, plus another 10 is $50,000 because we're going to give him a bonus, his stipend to do that. And we also then have an assistant. So to me, we're going over what we would have had budgeted otherwise, at $58,000 or $40,000, and I think that whether it's 40 or 50 or 60, that we should advertise this position as a full-time position, but one without benefits or anything else. And I'm sure we will get retirees to respond to that. And also, which isn't considered in here, is that if this teacher, whether it's this one or the assistant athletic director, positions have to be backfilled, the costs go up accordingly.
Okay.
So I'm not going to vote on this, okay, because I think we need to advertise this as a full-time position at, say, $55,000 a year.
If I can address this, the full-time position would cost over $100,000 a year, which is what Mr. Marcello had. The calculations that you did, Mr. Mudge, put all together, we estimated, I can't remember the number on our green page, but you approved, this committee approved the reorganization with 0.4 in mind, this stipend, a stipend and no reduction in course load for an assistant, and $2,500 stipends at the middle school. It's a good model. It's a model that I experienced when I was an administrator at Charahoe. It worked well, and it saves money. It's a money savings item that we had in our list of reductions. Saves significant money. I'm very confident with Mr. Haig. He's a great teacher and a great coach, and he even has an MBA in finance. So he is the right guy for the job, and I feel, particularly with all the budget issues that we're bringing forward, that we need to try this. It may turn out after a year that we say, listen, we'd like to expand this to maybe 0.6 or back to full time if we feel like it just hasn't worked out. But I feel we owe it to ourselves to try this out. I had a meeting today talking about the design, talking about this with our middle school administrators as well. They seem to be excited about it. And it's a savings to the district. It's not something. In terms of backfilling, we have cut 10 sections of different classes from the high school. And this is part of that. This is not something that will be backfilled by another teacher because Mr. Haig is part of that mix. And the classes that he vacates are probably, as it turns out, would probably be things that we would not be running. So, that this is all within the budget that has been approved by the school committee.
Well,
I'll remind the school committee that we've already voted on this model once when we voted on the budget cuts in February. Then we voted on it again when we voted not to renew Mr. Marcello's contract. And this is actually the third time. It's just a little different because this time we're actually approving the person.
Well,
I am looking for a motion to approve C2 and a second, and then we can have further discussion.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Mr. Mudge and then Mrs. Benson.
Again, when I said it's like $55,000, that was without benefits. Okay? I wasn't talking about any benefits at all. Okay? Other districts have that model as well.
So the other issue, Mr. Mudge, you brought up about a retiree. A lot of retirees, particularly if they've been working in school districts, cannot work more than 90 days. So the .4 issue, if it were not taken by a teacher and we needed a retiree, that would work to our benefit. If it were .5 or more, it may mean that retirees don't go for the job, particularly if they already are working from a pension as a public school teacher.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is we didn't fully explore this, and that's what I said.
That's not true. We fully explored it.
That's not, excuse me. I had asked for this to be more fully explored, because I know, like, for example, Mary Ganson had...
You asked for everything to be more fully explored.
Excuse me, Dr. Auger, I'm trying to make some rational comments here.
I pronounce it Auger.
Okay? Auger. Okay?
Thank you.
Now, the numbers don't add up. So, for example, let me just ask you a corresponding question then. If we take, okay, and get somebody that gets this job for $55,000 a year, we'll say, full-time, okay, no benefits, are you telling me that you're going to have to lay off Mr. Haig for 40% of the time? What's he going to do, sit around 40% of the time then? There's savings there. So we don't have a good economic analysis of what this really cost us, then, do we? Okay, I didn't want to get into that. But we should have looked at this other model, if you may, of getting it. And there are many ways to hire a teacher, okay, or excuse me, to hire somebody. This position, by the way, people should know, does not fall under the Department of Education. There isn't even a...
There are many ways. This is the way that was approved by the school committee.
It's not even a job description in the Department of Education.
Mrs. Benson had a hand up. Did you want to comment further about this motion?
I want to comment on the fact that when I read it, I was very pleased to see that he was a .6 teacher. So I have a question for Dr. O.J., and then we can continue move. .6 means that how many classes he will be teaching? 1?
3.
3 classes. I think that's very good to get a person who can double and give those 3 classes. So don't be so quick to set people off. You're doing a good job, but my God, give us a chance to add something.
All right.
I'd like to amend the motion, please.
What is your amendment?
I'd like to amend the motion to retain the current athletic director at his current salary.
We can't take that motion because we've already voted against that twice.
I don't care.
So,
you mean to tell me you can't take my motion to retain the current athletic director at his current salary for 1 year?
And it has already been, that motion has been defeated
It can't be voted on again?
No.
It can't. Are you sure about that?
It's not on the agenda tonight. So that is the reason we can't do it. So we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. Lorraine, could we have a roll call vote?
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Melboyd Benson.
Yes.
John Buscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi. Yes. William Mudge.
First, I'd like to say my comments have nothing to do with Mr. Haig.
Say yes or no.
Nothing to do with Mr. Haig. He's probably going to do a nice job, so this wasn't a personal issue towards him. Okay? So with that, I'm going to say no.
Thank you. Okay, we now have item number C3, approval of middle school summer director program. Do I have a motion to approve C3? Mr. Cerisi has moved.
Yes.
Do I have a second? Okay. Mr. Mudge, you had...
Cerisi wasn't in his seat.
Well, he's standing up. That's okay. We're going to allow Mr. Cerisi to walk around. So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Mudge, you had a question on this?
This is an enterprise fund account?
Yes.
Okay, and so therefore, as it being an enterprise fund account, it's self-paying?
Yes.
Okay, so if it's, so there is no local funds that are going into this or any other revenues otherwise?
Sometimes, I'm not sure to what extent, there may be some title funds that help out with this program, but not general funds.
Okay, the other issue would be on this, the program runs from June 25th, and it's fine, if it's an enterprise fund, I don't have a problem, to July 13th, so that spans the fiscal year. So if it's an enterprise fund, it's fine. So,
All right, so all those in, oh, Mrs. Benson.
The question I want to ask about summer school program. Summer school. Number 3 is, what are the charges for summer school at middle school?
I don't have that information in front of me. I can get that to you, Mrs. Benson.
The motion is on the table to approve Aaron Bagwell, and that is what we're discussing. We can get the other information to you later.
Germane to the summer school program.
Okay.
And if we don't know what the price is going to be, how can we schedule summer school?
The prices have been published, and the people who are involved, and they know them. I just don't have them in front of me right now, Mrs. Benson.
I'm talking about for the students' participation.
That's what I'm talking about, too. I don't have that information in front of me. Once I have it, I'll get it to you.
Okay, because I would like to ask another question.
Ask.
Thank you. Through the years, before I became a member of the school committee, I had a right that, as a citizen, that summer school was too expensive. That somehow, with the budgets that we have, summer school for 212, that we should be able to offer summer school at more of a discounted rate, because I do know that children who are on free lunch, is that published that they don't pay as much as a parent who doesn't receive free lunch?
Yes, they do get a reduced rate.
I had experience with that. And I've mentioned once before that we need to kind of get a handle on these summer schools. Because if a child can't learn it in 180 days, how is he going to make the next grade in 5 weeks or 6 weeks?
I have the information, Dr. Lejay, with your permission. This is the letter that was sent out to the students who were in need of this option. All options have a program fee of $140 per class, failed up to 3 classes. A reduced rate of $70 per class failed is available for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch.
I'm glad to see that in there this year, because I wasn't a member of the school committee, but I sponsored a little boy for summer school, and in September, I get this check from the school department that I had overpaid them for summer school.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Benson. How about if
Thank you so much for bringing that out, and the parents will know that.
all those in favor of approving the summer director for middle school, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Buskardin, you exempted C5.
Yes. Very quickly, I just want to thank you, Dr. Auger, for having you and your staff put together a list of fall coaches so we can vote on them en masse one time. I'm sure that's going to save us a lot of time in the future. And the only question I have, it's kind of self-evident, but I feel I have to ask it anyway. These coaches are being approved pending that sport actually exists.
Yes.
Okay.
If a program should not run, we would not be paying the coach.
Right, DeSantis?
For any reason, yeah.
But thanks again for putting that all together on one sheet, one
Thank you.
time. Thank you.
Mr.
Motion to approve C5.
And member C5 has the correction of Paul Fanning and not Manning. Is there a second?
It's only a motion. You can have discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to bring that
Mrs. Benson and then Mr. Mudge.
Okay, I was glad to see the coaches being appointed. Now, we talk about a deficit. This is a question that will have to go to the superintendent. This is July. we received extra money for the next year from the governor. So is this being included in the extra monies that we are receiving besides what's been said for the other? I noticed Mr. Welch in here, and you designated him as our
Once we
contact.
We
needed to know anything.
Our expectation with the vote from the legislature this week is that we will be, once the governor signs the budget, we will be hearing from RIDE about our actual appropriation. We think it is right on target with what we expected, perhaps even a little bit more, which we're happy about. The other piece, as I explained, is getting to the end of the game with ESP negotiations and all that, and that should have us realize a balanced budget, and these items would be within that balanced budget, yes.
Mr. Mudge.
Yeah, I'd like to make
So I want to make it clear, and I want to understand you. We will not have a deficit. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, we know that the governor appropriated extra money for 2013 school year, and these people are being hired pending on that check coming and when the things come from the State House.
If for any reason we realize we have some kind of a budget crisis and the school committee decides that they're going to have to do without certain sports in certain seasons, then these will be retracted.
Okay. The next question for you, while I have you, is that includes, you don't have anything on your agenda for cutting sports. This take care of all the present sports in the school department.
The cuts that we made to the sporting program, including freshman sports, the hockey program, and gymnastics, still exist.
And they will be existing in 2013?
Yes, they do. We will be looking, we're hoping to run as much of that as we can with private funding, but right now they are not part of our budget.
All right, let's have the motion. We have a motion on the floor on just on these coaches.
Yes, we have meetings.
But you are asking questions that are outside the realm of this motion. So if you would like to ask further budget questions. Yes, but not these sports. So now I'm going to call Mr. Mudge. Mr. Mudge.
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. I think for a couple of reasons, we should follow up with what Mr. Buscardin said and just say that these are subject to the particular sports being provided. And why would I say that? Okay? And I'm saying this, and I'm not saying it will be an issue in this town, but I recall in Providence some years ago when they cut the sports programs up there, believe it or not, the coaches still got paid. They still got paid because of the particular contract they had in Providence. Okay? So I'll make the motion that these are approved subject to the implementation of the programs.
There is a motion on the floor. Would anyone like to amend the motion on the floor?
Let's pass the motion and I'll get
Isn't that what he's doing?
I'm sorry. What was that?
Isn't that what Bill's doing? He's amending.
Well, he's making a motion, and I'm asking for...
I asked to amend it.
He's making an amendment to make... Okay, so the amendment is make this subject to the sports running. Do I have a second?
Yeah, the dates.
Yes. Mrs. Benson. All right, let's vote on the amendment. Roll call vote, Lorraine.
Melvoin Benson.
Yes.
John Buscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes. Okay, now let's vote on the main motion of approving the sports coaches for the fall, and again, that would be subject to approval of the sports running. So, Lorraine, roll call vote, please.
Melvoin Benson.
Could you state your motion again?
It's the approval of the fall coaches subject to the implementation of the program or sport being run. With the amendment.
Okay, with the amendment.
Is that a yes?
No, I'm not in a hurry.
Well, you're the person called on, Mrs. Benson. Could you give your vote, yes or no?
Yes, but I need a clarification,
Okay, thank you.
clarification from you. in this motion, will we be considering those sports that's on the chopping block?
No, you're only considering the sports that are listed in your agenda.
Thank you very much. That was a nice answer.
What is your vote, Mrs. Vincent?
No.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
Yes.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you.
C9, the last one on the consent agenda. Mr. Mudge, you exempted the approval of the teachers, summer teachers for Think Tank initiative teaching for
My
the summer.
question again was, the fiscal year funding, 12 or 13, and the closer I look at this, I see it runs from one fiscal year to the other, so...
Title funds through McGinney-Vento.
Excuse me?
Title funding,
Yep.
and it's, the dates are listed, June 25th through June 27th, 2012.
Are they fiscal year 12 title funds or fiscal year 13 title funds?
I believe they're 13.
Motion to...
Could you get back to me on that?
I will.
Please.
I think there might be 3 days of FY12 in there, but it is grant funding, so we're covered in both years of the grant.
You have a motion by Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Cerisi has made a motion to approve item number B9. Do I have a second?
Second?
B9, I'm sorry, C9. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. All right, so now we get into the end of the consent agenda. We have item number 5A.
I'm going to ask Mary King to talk a little bit about this particular issue, the retiree life insurance item.
It was brought to our attention in my first week here that the school department was inadvertently not following a state law in the administration of life insurance to retiree teachers. And the state law indicates that upon the time of a teacher retirement, whatever amount of life insurance at whatever rate it was being provided is all that that teacher would ever pay if they choose to stay on the life insurance. I did consult with Mary Ann Carroll in looking at the impact of this. This is actually RIGL, and I think I included it in your packet, RIGL 161642. And we did some calculations, and the impact of this payout for this inadvertent omission is $71,739.66. I would recommend that if this is approved, that we have this flow through our normal books with the understanding that this would reduce any surplus that we might be projecting right now for FY12, and should there not be a surplus, that it would come out of fund balance from that way, instead of voting that it just come directly out of fund balance.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Right, but if you want to step off the stage so you don't vote on this, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
I understand.
So right now, it's could...
Mr. Mudge, hold on a second. There was an issue, there was an ethics issue about voting that I was checking on with our attorney prior to this, and so that was why I was asking, and then I was just, and what I would say is, Mrs. Benson, since you are part of this, is that the Rhode Island ethics rules state that probably the safest thing for you to do is for right now is to step down off of the stage while we have this discussion, and then we do the vote. So if you just want to have a seat in the audience while we do this, and then we'll have you up after the vote.
Mrs. Page, I'm glad you checked with the Rhode Island Ethics Commission, and I also checked. And for the public here, I have been inquiring about this for the last 6 or 7 years. And I say thank you, Mr. Cerisi, to the trusts when they went through their reorganization. I want the people to understand it. When they went through their reorganization.
Okay, probably the less you say about this, the better.
And they went through it, I called them, then I called you, called the school department, and I made the statement, Mrs. Carroll, that I was only concerned about myself because this had been a recurring issue for me for the last 5 years. So I want
Mrs. Benson,
everyone to know
Mrs. Benson, you're
I'm not-
absolutely right, but you need to recuse
I
yourself
am
from
gonna
this
recuse
discussion and this
myself.
vote.
Thank you.
I talked with Mr. Willella.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right,
Don't come unprepared.
thank you.
Yeah,
Do we have, do I have a motion to approve 5AA?
I'd like to,
Hold on, Mr. Mudge.
yeah, I'd like to have a little
Hold
more...
on, Mr. Mudge.
Excuse me?
I said, hold on. Do I have a motion on 5AA? And actually, we need to wait for Mr. Cerisi to come back because
Well-
we don't have a quorum, so you just have to wait a
Well,
second.
now, let's, yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Do I want to make a motion?
Yes, I saw your hand up, Mr. Cerisi. Do you want to make a motion on
I'd like to make a
5A?
motion to approve agenda item 5A.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, I'd like to amend the motion, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Mudge, what would you like to say?
You know, I would really like to see what the numbers are and what,
We did have this discussion in executive session,
Yeah,
and you were just told the numbers.
yeah, well, but are we going to fund
So
this?
what is your
from-
motion? What is your amendment?
I'd like to identify where the funds are going to come from, okay, with a little more specificity.
Coming out.
Because we've got a fiscal year 12 issue, we've got a fiscal year 13 issue,
Let's-
so we've got to
go ahead.
commit ourselves one way or another to the funds, is all I'm saying.
Well, right now, we had projected a approximate $113,000 surplus for FY12. So if we let this fall to the bottom line, the net of that would be about $40,000. Should that not happen, then this would naturally come out of fund balance.
So,
Okay, so
given that...
Mr. Mudge has made an amendment to the motion. Do I have a second on his amendment? Okay, the amendment
could I-
fails, so we go back to the
Could I
original
further
motion.
explain
And
something?
I'd like,
Yeah.
so,
Can I further explain something?
no, you did not receive a second.
Well, we didn't
So-
finish the discussion here, because you haven't...
You didn't receive a second.
No,
so the
but you
motion- the
didn't let
amendment
me
fails.
respond to Mrs. King, because my question would be, the thing to do would be, regardless, just say it's coming out of fund balance, because if we have the surplus, it goes into fund balance, so we don't have to come back again.
Says
That's all
on the
I'm saying.
agenda, from fund balance.
But actually, Mr. Mudge,
Not what was said earlier, that was coming from fund balance.
There was.
Okay, it was not, excuse me, I thought it was said partially fund balance or partially capital, current year funding.
I just wanted to make a clarification, Mr. Mudge, that I feel as though we should allow these items to fall to the bottom line just as an accounting procedure, as opposed to making entries and approving entries that come directly from fund balance. So it's more of an accounting issue than it is, actually how it's really going to end up. I mean, I think that clearly, if we do not have a surplus, if we do have a surplus, it falls to bottom line, as well as this money. So it was really just an accounting item that I didn't think that it was in our best interest to continue to pull things directly from fund balance, but instead let them fall through the bottom line and let whatever falls to fund balance, surplus or deficit, fall naturally.
Okay, so I understand that, and what you're saying then is, from an accounting standpoint, that's fine, and makes sense. You incurred this, you became aware of this liability this year, okay? So you want to write it off on the books this year, and if we don't have the money, then at the end of fiscal year 12, we'll have to go to fund balance.
Right.
So it's either or, fine.
Okay, let's take a roll call vote.
So the motion would be
We already have a motion on the floor. The motion is to approve 5AA to pay out the teacher retirement for life insurance overpayments from fund balance.
No, it's not out of fund balance. It's out of fiscal year 12 revenue. That's what Mrs. King just said.
What was the motion?
5AA. That's all
Isn't that correct, Mrs. King?
That is how I would like that motion to be amended.
Did you want to use fiscal year 12 funds to apply to this? That's what I thought.
Make the motion.
I'd like to make the motion.
Second.
Second, that's it.
That Mrs. King, okay, we follow what Mrs. King would like to do is accumulate this as a fiscal year 12 expenditure at this point in time.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. Mrs. King, do we have the motions as we need to have the motion?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, all those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Can we let Mrs. Benson know she is free to come back in?
Where'd she go?
I don't know. We are going to be tabling item number 5B. We are not ready to make a recommendation right now because we are still waiting on some information. So we will not be doing 5B.
But we can have a discussion about 5B, can't we?
No, we're not going to be having a discussion. It's tabled.
Well, why? We just discussed
Because
it.
we don't have all the information.
Wait, excuse me, please. Please, okay?
Yes, we can't have a discussion without all the information. It's being tabled, so now we're moving on.
What information, could I ask, what information don't we have?
We don't have anything to report. So we're moving on. We're now in motion.
I think I just heard that we think we're going to have a $113,000 surplus in fiscal year 12.
We're not ready to discuss this as of yet. So there's nothing more. It is being tabled. It has been tabled by myself and Dr. Ajay. We're moving on. And that brings us to item number. What is your point of order?
I would like a vote taken to table this, to end discussion on this debate, okay?
Is there a motion to table?
On this
Do we have
issue.
to get a motion to table anything?
You're actually taking it off the agenda.
It's off the agenda. Nothing to table.
Excuse
All right,
me.
there's nothing to table.
Who took it off the table? It's on my agenda.
Well, Dr. Ajay did. Mr. Streisand.
Dr. Ajay did. He
Mr.
can't take anything
Streisand.
off our agenda.
Motion to approve 5C.
You're going to be kidding.
So there's a motion to approve 5C, both parts?
Yep.
How can we possibly talk about...
We're not ready for C1. We're waiting right now to have a meeting and get a recommendation from the facility subcommittee on what they would recommend, but we are ready to approve C2, which is the award of the replacement of the Davisville Middle School roof. Everything is on schedule for the replacement of that roof.
Motion to approve C2. Thank you, Dr.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Lorraine, could we take a roll call vote?
Mel Boyd Benson.
I wasn't present when the discussion was going on.
I think you were here when Mr. Streisand just made the motion.
This is
Vote on the motion.
C2.
It's for the approval of C2, recommend approval of Capeway Roofing Systems Incorporated as
I'd like to
contractor.
amend the motion, please.
We're taking the roll call vote. It's too late.
Well, what's the amount that we're voting on, please? Can't we just put the amount down there so the public knows it, we have it documented? Please.
It says $1,332,000.
Okay, so that's the $1,332,000.
Okay, we are in the process of taking a roll call vote.
Okay.
So, Lorraine, if you could continue.
Mel Boyd Benson.
Abstain.
John Biscarden.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
Yes, at $1,332,000.
22 cents.
22 cents.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Please record that, Lorraine. please.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Motion
Now,
passes.
Okay, that brings us to
What happened
number
to
5D.
B? What happened to B on the agenda? 5B?
Nothing to report.
Motion to approve
We have
5...
nothing to report on our...
Motion to approve 5D. D as in Delta.
Is in Delta. So there is a motion to approve the replacement carpet,
RFP.
the RFP, to authorize an RFP.
Actually,
for bid.
I'd like to just clarify that a little bit. What Dr. Auger and I would like to do, it would not exactly be an RFP because of the timing of all of this. What we would like to have is your approval for us to solicit quotes from vendors that are on the MPA and other vendors that are available to provide either tiling as a replacement or possibly polished concrete. So this would not be a formal RFP. We would ask for your approval for this. I have some people lined up that would come in tomorrow afternoon to see the space. They would submit their bids no later than 1 o'clock on Monday. We would submit that information to the Facilities Subcommittee on Monday, the 18th, that evening, for their recommendation to the school committee. And I would present that information to the town council for them to vote to proceed on the 25th, to the school committee to vote to proceed on the 26th, and both of those votes would be contingent upon RIDE accepting the proposal.
Mr. Cerisi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to recognize and credit the Mrs. King and the administration here for taking a speedy path here to find a resolution for this issue. We can get this done over the summer months before the children come back to school in the fall. And as you stated, operating well within your authority and using vendors off the state's master price agreement list. So thank you for that, and I will motion to support that recommendation as you outlined it.
Thank you.
Mr. Buscharden.
Could you please, just for my own personal clarification, why are we not going through the typical RFP channels?
Because the timing is very, very tight. If we did the typical RFP, we would need to get it posted. It would probably have to be out there for a week, week and a half to be posted. We'd be reviewing bids. We'd be setting up further meetings with the Facilities Subcommittee. And Dr. Auger and I are trying to fit this into the timeline that we have now and the time frame, as well as having the town council approval and the school committee approval before the school committee leaves for session.
If we can get this authorized within the current $6.4 million bond, it's going to need all the approvals from all of these different committees, and our timeline is for the summer, and our last meeting is the 26th. So, you know, it's a way to get all of this done in 2 weeks and have time to do it over the summer so that we don't have to delay school.
Actually, that's okay. I will support that. Thank you. Thank you for your explanation.
I'm going to second Mr. Cerisi's motion. Okay, Mrs. Benson and Mr. Mudge.
Thank you, Mrs. King, for taking the care of that in such a business-like way. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mudge.
And I support your recommendation, but one question I have to ask. Does our opinion, our idea, and depend upon what the Facilities Committee say?
The Facilities Committee would just merely make the recommendation for you on reviewing the bids and their experience of that group on other things that they've seen in business. So they're merely an advisory committee for you.
If we ask them.
I know that that's their role as an advisory person.
We will vote on this again on the 26th, once we have their recommendation.
They are not the elected representatives of the town, not the Facility Committee. I wanted to make that clear, and to thank you for going about it in such a business-like way.
Mr. Mudge.
Well, first I'd like to say, Ms. King, if we accept your recommendation, it doesn't have to go through the Facilities Committee. Okay?
That's correct.
We can do this if there's some value added there. But I fully want to support the mitigation of the issues that we've had at Quinnesset, but I'm skeptical, okay, about just replacing a carpet, okay. I know it's a number of years old, and I brought this up before, and if it's worn out, it should be replaced, obviously. But I'm concerned about the engineering aspect of the things we have to do before we replace a rug. We still have no information as to whether the water's coming up from the foundation or We don't know if that has to be remediated.
If I can address that, Bill. part of the related work and materials that is listed here. We're not looking to put another carpet down, but we are also looking, what we're going to include when we talk to these, the people who are going to bid, is something to do just that. You know, we have identified in the past problems due to water coming up through the foundation. Concrete is porous. I'm learning a lot about these materials lately. So, you know, we would be looking for some kind of an option where possibly sub pumps are actually, you know, in closet spaces or things like that, where they are removing water that is draining up from below before it becomes a problem and gets to the floor level. So that's included in all this. So what I don't want to just, like you said, I don't want to just replace the carpet and then have the same problem occur in the next couple of years. I'd like to get rid of all drainage issues. We've already done a lot to take care of the roof issue, and I'm pleased to report that we're experiencing a lot less leakage, particularly in that second grade area. There's none at all there. And we have some more plans to do more thorough work over the summer. That's under warranty. But this piece would be to take care of all the other issues. The windows are included in this. The floor, the water level drainage issue would be included in this, and I would be looking for some kind of like a polished concrete or a paint or tile where it's something that, you know, does not, I'm not too crazy about carpets, particularly in elementary schools, because of, you know, they're hard to clean.
Yeah.
That we would also be looking within this to kind of do something about sound. You know, you'd probably need more partitions that have some sound absorption to them. You probably noticed that in some places in that building and at Stony Lane as well, we have tiles that actually hang that are sound absorbers. So because they are open classrooms, so you don't want a lot of hard noise kind of bouncing all over the place. This would kind of include all of that, and to try to take care of this problem once and for all.
Good. I'm glad to hear you say that, because, I have concern on this thing, because maybe you have to replace half the rugs in the building, or maybe you don't. But the fact that you're going to go through this engineering analysis, I think, is very positive and something we have to do. And I think that's the first step to make sure, no matter what happens, we get that analysis going as soon as possible. And then whatever the fix is, it comes from the engineers, whether we can seal the floor with, what am I trying to say, whatever, epoxy, provided it's not, detrimental to the kids, putting in sumps like you're saying, to take water away like that. I think that's the first thing we really need to do, and then go into the remediation of, the rest of the issues with the rugs. So, I'll support that on that basis, that we're going to preface this all with an engineering study, okay, and know what the hell we're really getting into. Thank you.
All right, so all those in favor of 5D, as in Delta, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that brings us to 5E. Dr. Ajay.
Sure, this is, given all of the events, particularly with the Quidnesset roof and Davisville going on with the bond, and looking at just how much a...
Dr. Ajay, I saved you some time. I'll make a motion that we go to a full-time supervisor.
Well, thank you. I just... Very, very briefly, I just want to explain that I'm looking, we had approved a part-time. I think this is something that in the long term and in the short term, it's something with preventative maintenance, a very good qualified full-time building supervisor can save this district a lot of money and make sure that we're staying on top of all buildings issues. So that's why we're going in this particular direction. Thank you.
I would like to see the supervisor have an engineering degree or civil engineering degree or something like that to go along with that.
We do have a list of recommendations that were given to us back in July from the Facilities Subcommittee about all the qualifications they believe a building supervisor should have, and we will use those within our job description.
So Mr. Mudge has made a motion on the floor to approve the item number 5E. Do I have a second?
Seconded for point of discussion.
Okay, so it's been seconded by Mrs. Benson.
For point of discussion.
And now we will discuss it. So Mrs. Benson, what would you like to discuss?
Okay. That was a short trip between getting rid of a supervisor and hiring another one. I wasn't for it when it happened, so it didn't take us very long, Mr. Cerisi, to get to the conclusion. I hate to call your name, you give me such a dirty look. Well, I didn't know if I should open my
All right,
mouth
Mrs.
or
Benson,
not.
please keep your comments
I will.
contained to the motion.
I will. So I'm glad that we didn't have to go a year before discovering that we needed a facility manager.
Thank you.
That was a
Mr.
short trip.
Bussgarden.
Thank you. First, anything that anything we can do to make sure that our employees and the kids are in a safe working environment is important, and especially when it comes to education. I mean, hey, little kids get distracted easy enough. You don't have to have, tarps and buckets and everything else there to have them focus on anything but what we need them to focus on. So I can appreciate the fact that you need that you're requesting a full-time person to oversee the buildings. However, the one part I'm just not completely comfortable with is the range of pay that you have slated for this person. And I realize you went and looked at comps. You took comparable positions from different school districts, and I appreciate that work. However, my question would be, when were these people hired, and what economic climate were they, and what unemployment climate were they hired in? I think that the unemployment rate is somewhere in the vicinity of 11.5%, depending on what week it is. You can find a well-qualified person for a bit less than what you have listed on your on the form here on our agenda. And I would just ask that let's not marry ourselves to slot ourselves with a pay rate. I think if you went with commensurate with experience, I think you would find a lot of qualified people. Mrs. King's position, when she was hired, you said yourself that you got more people qualified than you ever thought you would. I think you'll find the same thing with here. Just leave us. If you go in with a pay structure, you can't go back. If you go in open-ended, you have room to work. And that's all I think we should do, is just look at all the options, go in open-ended, because once you go in with a pay rate, you can't say, well, that's great, but maybe we want to pay you less. It just, you can't do that.
I would be okay with that amendment, Mr. Bussgarden. I did notify you that my thinking with Ms. King is to go 60 to 70,000, and my currently our GCB format for pay for directors and all that lists this particular position somewhere between $71,000 and $80,000. So this is a reduction. This is going backwards. I'm okay with listing it as commensurate with experience and then having this discussion later on once we actually have a candidate to present. Because they're going to come with a unique set of qualifications that are going to warrant, or at least my making a decision about my proposal to you about what I think that person should be paid. So I'm fine with kind of leaving it until then. But I just wanted people to know that, and this is consistent with a lot of what we have done, and that is, be mindful of trying to keep. You want to have a fair market value. We want to attract people to work in this district who have good qualifications and not have a lot of people who are not even going to apply because they're just not attracted by the salary. At the same time, we have to be mindful to keep it, we have a tough budget situation that we have to be mindful of. So, this kind of acknowledges a little bit of both of that. I'm worried about attracting people to the district, even good people, and then find that, we can't sustain them because of salary issues, So, it's a tough balance. But I'm fine with moving forward with salary commensurate upon experience as an amendment to this.
Are you making that amendment, Mr. Buskirden, or are you just going to wait until, once we get the person, and then we can decide what the salary will be at that time?
Can I wait till everybody's discussion, or should I make the motion? Should I make it now?
I'm asking you, I wanted to ask if you were going to make the motion or not.
I'd like to finish the discussion for it.
I agree with what
Hey,
Dr.
hold on.
I agree
Mr.
with-
Mudge.
I agree with everything that's been said. I think we need to have a range, okay, and to me, I think the current range we have, maybe it should go down to $65,000 to $80,000, okay, because when you're going to go out, you're going to look at somebody, he can say, yeah, I can take this job for $65,000, but I do have a growth period up to $80,000. So a guy that maybe has the qualifications, I think we should look for a civil engineer or somebody with an engineering degree. And we have to remember, this person is in charge of, a couple $100 million worth of infrastructure and everything else. So we want to get the right person for this. And, we've seen the roof problems we had and this and that, and hopefully, we need to get the right person that can bring the maintenance plans together and make sure that they're run correctly and problem investigation. And it takes a pretty good type of person to do that. So if you restrict this thing to a narrow scope of, then I think you're going to lose a lot of good candidates. So I would recommend or make the motion you make it from $65,000 to $80,000 at least right now.
I think that's a little high. Mrs. Benson.
Hi. It's a range, but you don't have to. It's a range.
Mrs. Benson.
I was going to ask a question, and I was going to ask about what is the qualification. I heard you say experience, but what is the qualification? Is that a question that should be asked, Mrs. King?
RIDE requires that anyone who is a supervisor of facilities is actually there are a few different and/ors. A certified educational facilities manager, which is a specific certification from ICFM, I believe is the group, International Certified Facilities Management Group. Or they need to have X number of years' experience in facilities management, and I do not remember that number of years, Ms. Benson, I'm sorry about that. Or they need to have a degree in facilities management.
Thank you. That was the question I wanted to know. And I have another question. Dr. O'J, this question is for you.
Okay.
I'm talking to you. The question is, you keep mentioning the Facilities Committee as if they are the last word on what the school committee does. And if I wouldn't contaminate your office, I'd come in and let you explain it to me, but I have to get my hands.
I could explain it to you right now.
That's why
I feel the Facilities Subcommittee is there for a reason, that they advise us on facilities issues. And when we were reorganizing with a part-time person in mind, we asked them to weigh in on what should we be looking for in a new leader, and they gave us that advice. So I will use that because I consider them to have a lot of expertise in an area that I simply do not, to advise us on what we should be looking for in terms of credentials, and then obviously the decision is ultimately yours, but you'll know that we have had many knowledgeable facilities-minded people helping us to make a good one.
That tells you, did they
Mrs.
support the
Benson has
part-time
floor.
recommendation?
Mrs. Benson has the floor.
No.
I agree with you about, don't have a heart attack. I agree with you about that. But I'm having a time with us using the word advisory and then putting all of this on this for them to do. I'm not a civil engineer. I was listening about the soap pumps and things. That's a mistake that was made way before you came and the way before I came to school committee, because we bought land that we knew was wetland. So we're getting past those. we're getting past those things now, but I just wanted your definition for advisory.
Mr. Cerisi.
I was asked, I haven't.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Didn't answer my question.
I concur with the comments that Mr. Piscata made on this issue, and I would offer a motion at this time to approve this agenda item, and the salary will be approved contingent on, based with the level of experience. The salary will be approved at a separate time by the school committee.
Second.
All right, so we have, is this an amended motion?
Did we have a motion on the floor?
We didn't make a motion yet.
Did we have a motion on the floor before Mrs. Berglund?
Didn't. And I had a question.
Well, we had,
And I
the
didn't
original
get to
motion was
finish.
made by Bill Mudge,
Mr.
seconded by Mel
Parisi.
Benson.
Yes, we did have an original motion on the floor, so
I'll
this would
offer
be...
that as an
this is-
amendment.
This is an amendment. All right, so let's take a roll call vote on the amendment. And if you could read the amendment, please, Mrs. Berglund.
The amendment is to approve this item with salary contingent upon level experience to be approved later by the school committee.
What happened to
Roll
my
call.
amendment?
This is an amendment to your motion.
Oh.
Go ahead. Mel Benson.
Yes, I'm still a member.
But could we discuss this motion and that was just brought up because...
We're taking a roll call vote.
John Biscardin.
Yes.
Larry Cerisi. William Mudge.
No.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-1 on the amendment.
All right, so now we have a new motion on the floor of approving 5E with the amendment attached.
What amendment?
I do just want to make sure that I have an opportunity to say, everyone has spoken thus far, that I know this is something that we had looked to the town to see if we could do any sort of consolidating with them, and their plant manager is just full out, and that was not an option. So I do want people to know that that was something that had been discussed, and just that if we needed someone like we do for the roof issues that we've been having, that this is what the way we needed to go. So I will be prepared to support Dr. Ajay on this.
Could I ask a question? What married really to you, what there's a current motion, I must have missed something here, give you a range so you can advertise?
No, I believe what we said, that we would post the position with salary commensurate with experience. And then we would make a recommendation, Dr. Ajay would make a recommendation upon which time we had someone to present to the committee.
You don't think we should give the public an idea what the range is?
I think that since we already have the GCB, obviously that's part of the, and Dr. Ajay is actually making a range that is less than that it'll be fine, but it will be that you will not get the salary until it'll be based on what your experience is.
Yeah, but you want to attract the people, so
Right,
you
and that's
give them a
there's
number.
still something there. Mr. Biscardin.
This goes back to what Ms. King said. There's qualifications either or. And either or, at least from my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, you either are an entry level at this position, you've just received your degree and your certification, or you have maybe not the degree and or certification, but you have 15 years of experience. Well, that is going to encompass a very, very wide and broad spectrum of skills and pay rate. If you leave it salary commensurate with experience, if I read that for that job, I would realize, first off, I don't know what the acronyms mean, therefore, I'm not qualified. I'm not going to submit my resume. But if somebody sits there and they says, I have that, and that, I don't have all this, but I have 4 of the 5, I'm submitting my resume. And that's how you get somebody at the middle, bottom, and top. That's how you advertise for a position with skill sets that are so broad and the requirements are either or. That's how you do it.
John, I understand, but the question is, if they're good, maybe they would demand $100,000 a year, but we can't pay them that.
Well, they would learn
my choice.
Then in the interview process, you say, what are your expectations of this job as a salary?
Oh,
and they say $120,000, you say, thank you, next.
Well, that's why I thought we ought to give the superintendent the latitude to narrow this thing so the people that will fit that shoe, 65 to 80,000, would, as just a number.
We still have GCB to lock us in on the top range of what this will be. So that would be what people would know. They wouldn't be able to get 100,000. They would be able to get what the top range of GCB is. All right. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Let's go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Larry Cerisi.
Yes.
William Mudge.
Yeah, we need a guy, so I'll put, yeah.
Kimberly Page.
Yes.
Melvoy Benson.
Mrs. Page, you didn't recognize me, but I would...
This is for the vote.
This is for the vote. I'm going to vote. I know it's for the vote. But I was going to ask...
Everybody got to speak at least once, so that's why we...
Democracy.
And I gave everybody a chance to speak.
Don't give nobody
I
nothing.
gave you 2
People
times
give
to
us
speak.
power
So
by
now we're
going
moving
to
on.
the
I need a
polls.
yes or no, Mrs. Benson, on the motion.
Uh-huh. Yes, we get the power from the voters.
John Buscardin.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to 5F, the GZA study for NKS holding tanks. Mr. Cerisi.
Motion to approve this recommendation.
I actually have some information as well that I received just last Friday. GZA has come back to us and said that they will update this report that was attached for $1,500. So you have that as a point of reference for your vote.
Is that something that you would recommend to the committee at this time to go ahead with that action?
And the Facilities Subcommittee recommended that we take a look at it as well.
Okay. So I'll motion to support that recommendation.
I'll second that.
All right, so I have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Question? Yeah.
Mr. Mudge.
Mary, what's the rough estimate now for this project?
At the time this report was done, which was January 2011, that's why we're going to have them come in and take another look. I believe that report said $50,000 to $75,000, Mr. Mudge?
Okay, so, that's good. So we're going to reconfirm that. See, and I would say that we send this bill to the town council. It doesn't come out of anything that we have. Now, why would I say that? Why would I say it shouldn't come out of our school capital reserves, nor should it come out of our general fund? The reason I'm saying that is, this was a poor design to start with, and that was the council's responsibility, okay? So, you know, they should be funding this, okay? They were in charge, they were the building contractor, they allowed things to be taken away from this building, like our
Are you making
security
an amendment
systems and
to
things
the
like
motion?
that.
Because right now, the motion is merely to approve updating the study. So I understand what you're saying, but that's not relevant to the motion on the floor.
Yeah, for some reason I thought the study was up there. That's $1,500, then the cost would be subject to the cost of $1,500?
Yes.
Okay. You can note that. That's fine. I support that
Right.
then.
All those in favor of item 5F, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, 5S approved. Item G, we are not going to be voting on tonight because this is no longer an option.
Yeah,
Dr.
that
O'Shea?
opportunity is passed.
So that brings us up to item number H. We only have one person who has listed their name for the Asset Management Committee. And so, Lorene, you talked to the town today. Have they given us permission to extend this?
They said we could have the extension.
We could have the extension. So we can still send the one name forward, but we're looking towards the 26th
Was
to
this
get a second
advertised?
name.
Did we advertise for this?
Yes,
We
this
did?
was advertised. So why don't we, again, table this? We, like I said, we have no problems in sending forward the one name, but why don't we wait until the 26th, and hopefully we'll have 3 names like the town has requested.
Do we have, who's the current representative?
Mr. Seabury.
Is he,
And he has submitted his name again. So, but the town has asked that we have 3 names, so all we're merely doing is asking to see if we get 2 more names to give the town what they've asked for.
like, why don't we just reconfirm Mr. Seabury?
Well, we can send his name on, but they would like 3 names. So why don't we wait until the 26th and see if we get anybody else to join Mr. Seabury's name?
Okay.
All right. So
Madam
that,
President?
yes.
Will we be able to submit names?
Somebody has to fill out the paperwork that is with the town office, and then they can submit their name.
Okay, I wanted the directions.
Yes. So they go to the website on the asset management, it's under town committees, they can get the form, and they can get the listing of what the asset management committee does and the current members.
This is strictly a town council process. It really is not ours.
Right, but
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the school committee rep, so we give them 3 names.
Yes.
Okay.
3 names is always given.
So let's go into policy here, folks. And we have, the first policy is the commercial advertising policy, which, thanks to Mary King, this is something that we have passed by Mary Ann Carroll. This is a proposed policy that we would be adopting for when we have people who would say that they would like to advertise in our gymnasiums, at our track and field and other places. It is merely a first read, so unless there is some great questions by the committee, I guess I would ask you to ask that now, if there's anything you don't like, but this will come back to us on the 26th for a final read and a vote. Are there any other questions?
No. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so the next policy is the bullying policy. This was written by the state. We are basically mandated to adopt this policy as of June 30th, and so that is why it is on here for a first read. This is to work in conjunction with our current bullying policy that is called the Bullying, Sexual Harassment, Teen Dating Violence Policy. That policy will strictly be for when there are instances of teen dating and violence. This one will be if there is bullying or cyberbullying. So, yes, Mr. Mudge.
Yeah, I have a comment on that. You might have answered my question, I'm not sure. You said this is going to be in conjunction with our current bullying policy, so are we going to have two policies, or are we going to have one?
Yes. The first policy will be, this will be if somebody is only bullied, and I don't mean that as only bullied, but if somebody is bullied and if there is cyberbullying, this will be the policy that the principals and the staff will use. If there is some bullying that has an aspect of teen dating or sexual harassment, then they will use the other policy. And we did ask, I asked specifically at David Abbott's office at the Department of Rhode Island Education so that I could make sure that we kept both policies, and that's what they specifically told me.
I just looked at this briefly.
It is approved by the Department.
This is written by them, and they are requiring us to pass it.
Yes, we should pass it.
Today's just a first read.
I've been doing research on
Yes,
bullying.
Mr. Mudge.
My concern was, I looked at this quickly, and I didn't see this, so I asked the question, is with the state's bullying policy, bullying policy, we have a resource officer in our school, and I didn't see any interface between the state's policy and the utilization and the working with our resource officer in that policy.
I believe we can still do that. It's just that not every school has a resource officer, so.
But if I may interject here, in our other policies that we approved a few meetings ago, we had the administrative responses in those policies, and we included support staff and the resources at the schools. So we're covered with that.
Mr. Cerisi and then Mrs. Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, this is a first read. It's a draft. The committee has a copy of this draft in their package. If they have questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, they should certainly bring it to the policy subcommittee or to the assistant superintendent. And then this will come to us at our next meeting for a vote. It's not on the agenda tonight for a vote. It's just the first read.
Oh, you can't comment on the first read?
Do you have any further comments, Mr. Mudge?
No, thank you. I'm satisfied.
Mrs. Benson, did you have any other comments?
I didn't have no comments. Mr. Cerisi answered, and thank you very much, Larry, for pointing that out.
All right, so now we come to item policy 5I3, and this is the behavioral restraint policy. This is something that we did not vote on last time we met because we wanted to ask the CLAC committee, and I attended their meeting last night, and they had no problems with this policy. They asked a couple of questions, and they were answered, but they were very receptive. Mr. Cerisi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, as you recall, I had asked that we, at our last meeting, we table this item until we could present that opportunity, and I thank you for attending their meeting last night and making sure that that opportunity was presented and they had an opportunity for feedback and input. So at this time, I'm satisfied with the process that we followed, and I thank you and the Assistant Superintendent as well. And I'll make a motion to approve this agenda item.
I second that motion. now
Thank
that
you.
we have worked it out with the CLAC committee.
If there's no further
Those are their
questions,
children.
if there's no further questions, all those in favor of approving JICD R2, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. All right, so that brings us to new business. Michelle Humbard, Dr. Humbard, if you want to explain to us the strategic plan update.
Yes, I'd be happy to. First of all, Dr. Auger and I, at our directors' meeting, and Mrs. Santa reviewed our old policy, and we also reviewed the RIDE strategic plan, as well as reviewed some examples from other districts of their current strategic plans. And we established our goals. We aligned them to the Rhode Island Department of Ed state plan and wrote our objectives. We then asked for administrative input at the Administrative Council, so all of the principals were able to provide feedback. We then convened a stakeholders meeting in which we had representatives from all of our various stakeholders. We had parents, teachers, school committee members, union representation, central office staff, etc. We broke into groups. We revised each of the goals that were part of the strategic plan, and edits were made. Those revisions were then incorporated for a revision, and they were sent out to all the stakeholders who participated. We also brought it back to Administrative Council one more time, and they reviewed the revisions and accepted the draft that you have before you tonight.
If I could, I want to commend Dr. Humbard for the great work that she did, from the beginning to the end. I mean, this is a great plan, and it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of work to bring a lot of people together to inform this plan. Obviously, it's going to affect everything that we do. Just so that, those of you without a copy of this in front of you, there are 5 goals to this plan: that we support achievement of rigorous learning goals and continuous growth. We specifically did not pick particular items in terms of that we would see a 3% increase in reading or a 2% increase in writing or something to that effect. We feel it is important to have rigorous learning goals and continuous growth, and that just like with our evaluation system, and we're taking the lead from that, we're looking at all different areas, not just in reading, writing, and math, but in all areas, no matter what the subject area, that teachers and administrators are focused on continuous growth in that area, that you set those kinds of numbers, 2%, 3%, at the lowest possible level. So a teacher in that teacher's classroom dealing with a specific set of students that they understand where they have been, would, with a principal, set goals for learning for that particular classroom. And that's what should be going on. What we should be insisting on is continuous growth, in all areas. The second area is about addressing social, emotional, creative, and physical needs of all students. This is consistent with our last plan and has carried over into this one as well. Things that we've talked about tonight. The next goal is providing up-to-date facilities and technology that effectively support educational programs. Number 4 is to engage families in the community to support student achievement. And number 5 is to maintain a fiscally responsible budget with priorities that focus on student learning and continuous improvement. So these all work together well. In the report that, you can find this by going to our website and looking at this agenda and seeing the attachments. You will see that there are a number of action steps underneath each item, new things that we're looking to introduce to the district. One item, for instance, for the technology piece that came up, Mrs. John tonight talked about the smart board piece and the ability to, effectively implement technology around the district. So a lot of different things come into play here. There are probably, in some cases, there are about a dozen action steps. In some areas, in others, it's about 5 or 6. And we can talk about this more. It's a new business item, so we wouldn't be voting on this tonight. But we just wanted to introduce this to you tonight and give you an opportunity to give us some feedback. You're the last step in the process as a school committee, and so over the next few weeks before we vote on this, I would encourage you to please give me a call or an email about anything in there that you may see as a concern or something that you feel needs to be added to this. Thank you.
So while we're not voting on this tonight, are there any questions that people would like to ask? Mr. Mudge?
Yeah, I guess this isn't a fiscal year 12 to 15, right? It's 13 to something else. Being 12 is gone.
Oh, we're writing the plan in 2012, and this will take us till 2015.
I was looking at the applicability of the plan, but I would say, I just briefly looked at this, but I think, like on the facility side of the house, we can almost take off the Davis for roof. That's going to happen. I think we need to put in at least two priorities that I feel we need to focus on is the high school ventilation problem and the Whitford Middle School heating plant. And I would hope that would be a priority that we could take care of. It wouldn't be 2015 that would take us to that. But I guess in general, maybe this is better said in terms of, referring it to a separate document, implementing the priority plan developed by the school committee, instead of making the specific action item as part of this.
What I think I would do there, Bill, is to, simply include something about, following our CIP, to, do our best to address.
It just looked like it was kind of specific for a plan. You may want to refer to.
Yeah, you have a couple of ideas, and I agree with you. Those ideas are important, but I think that put it kind of in a larger context that we would continue to look at our CIP and the prioritization of projects.
It weren't just limited to these priorities.
Right.
That's
right.
my point.
Yeah, I will add something about that.
Mr. Busgarden.
This is my first time looking at the strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
So now, next year, do you redo this going from 13 to 16, or do we just focus on this, then in 2015, you roll out?
Next year, we would provide an update.
Okay.
And we would meet again at the end of the year and talk about, here's what has been addressed in the original plan, and if there's anything, that still needs to be addressed, what are they, and do we see in the next, what step in the process will we be at the next?
So it's pretty much like a living document.
Yeah. This guides us for a few years down the line, which is kind of nice to have that kind of continuity. 1 year at a time with these doesn't always work well.
And I do agree with Mr. Mudge. I think that I would, endorse you adding something to affect with the third floor, the third floor in the high school, the ventilation, the heating, the cooling. Hardly a month goes by when somebody brings up the fact that the windows are open in the winter and the heat's going out because it's tough to function up there. I would love to see that on here as well.
Mrs. Benson.
Thank you, Mrs. Page. I'm glad to see that we are doing future I have nothing to say.
Okay.
I'd like to speak on the point of personal privilege.
You may speak on the topic that we're discussing right
Okay,
now
and
on the agenda.
before we leave, I'd like to speak on the point of personal privilege.
Just speak on the item on the agenda, Mrs. Benson.
I said I had nothing to say on this one.
Okay.
But I was asking if I could speak on the point of personal privilege as a member.
No, we're only speaking on this
Not
item
now,
of the strategic
not now,
plan.
before dismissal.
Is there any other comments on the strategic plan?
Only thing I've had
Okay.
is good document, and you did a good job. That is, if they let me speak and not pass notes.
I think that people are merely taking notes of what's been said here, Mrs. Benson.
Don't make an excuse.
All right, so I will say that I think this is a great document. I was able to take part in the group that looked at the revision, so thank you, Dr. Humbert, for your work in putting this together. I like what I see. I think you all did a great job. I just have a very small part, so...
You saw that?
Thank you, Ms. Page.
Everybody do respect.
So, as I said, next time we will come here and we will vote on this item. So that pretty much brings us to the end of our session. And does anybody have any correspondence you want to add?
Yeah, I have some. I've already given it to Loren, and I'll provide a few copies for the chair. Would you pass these down, please? And Mary, these are some of the things I sent you. I revised my chart. If you could look at that, I'd appreciate it.
If you have gotten a chance to look at your executive session minutes, if you could pass those back down to Lorene. We've taken the vote on those, so make sure that they're passed down, so that you have those. So right now, I need a motion to convene into...
Recess to executive.
Recess into executive session. Thank you, Mrs. Berglund. So I have Mrs. Benson?
I would like to speak for a minute before dismissal on the point of personal privilege,
No, I'm not going
which is allowed through Robert Rules of Order.
Well, we don't have that on our agenda, Mrs. Benson. If you would like to speak on something in the agenda, that's fine, but I'm not going to...
No, I didn't come here only to speak on... Any member of any organization can speak on the point of personal privilege.
I'm looking for a motion to...
that is allowed to you. If not, I'll meet you in court about that.
Mrs.
Benson wants to speak on a point of personal privilege.
Is that allowed within...
And I'm like, it's not on our agenda.
Is that allowed as part of Robert's Rules of Order?
I'm looking, it's not on our agenda.
I don't care. Is it part of Robert's Rules of Order that she can do that?
It's your school committee rules if you have those issues in your school committee rules. I don't believe you do.
But can we be stopped by the president?
What is Robert's Rules of Order?
Wait. Can you be stopped? Can you be stopped by the president of doing what?
Speaking to a point of personal privilege.
She asked for a point.
I asked for a point of personal privilege.
And you know, Mrs. Benson, from our experience in the legislature that we serve, that it's up to...
I certainly do, and
it's up to the
not
chair.
Like this.
It's up to the chair to decide whether that's allowed.
Is that within Robert's Rules of Order?
Mr. Cerisi.
So, Mrs. Page, let it make it
I recognize Mr. Cerisi for a moment.
Madam Chair, I offer a motion to recess to executive session at this time pursuant to 4246-4 for discussion of job performance.
That is on our agenda. I'm going to allow that motion. Do I have a second on that motion? Okay, I will second the motion. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to convene into executive session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Okay, motion passes. 3-2. Thank you.
All right.
I'm going on.